How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts are still
Fenurian.
And Volatile, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week with the full complement of show hosts once more.
I can't leave you
first
two
of all-
alone for a minute, can I?
No,
Yeah.
it's
No.
usually bad and usually involves boobies at some point. But
we didn't make
Even
it
if
the
it's
whole
just-
show until you brought it up at the very end, just because you felt you had to bring it up.
yep. Anyway,
Dear.
if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, most easily accessed by going to vtwproductions.com and clicking on the No Excuses logo on any of our recent show posts, which will link you directly to our Discord server. You can chat with the show hosts and other listeners to the show in real time when the show is on or at any other time.
Yes, indeedy. So, on the stream today, I'm playing a very strange little game that was recommended to me called Crest, which is a god sim which has a very hands-off way of doing things by the look of it.
It sounds like a margarine brand or something.
It does, or toothpaste, actually. But,
Is it?
it is actually, yes.
It is a toothpaste.
It is
I used some
toothpaste.
this morning.
There you go. So the idea
Huh.
is you have your civilization of little very strangely animated people, and you can only interact with them by handing down commandments. So essentially, you need to try and guide them using these kind of word block phrases to hopefully not die.
So it's a programming exercise for dumb robots.
To a point, yes. Except every now and again they'll make an association between, one word and something else, and what the association is can be completely arbitrary. So, say you want to try and conserve an animal, you can tell them to praise it and not hunt it, but they might just randomly say and assume praising an animal, the best way to do that is to eat it. So, I don't know.
I see.
We shall see. I'm half expecting all these people
So
to
is
die.
this systematically randomized by the game?
It
Or
is. It randomizes just every now and again. They'll make that association, though you can purge them sooner or eventually. And it also randomizes what passes for a tech tree, and the tech tree adds new words and new commands. So
I see.
we shall see how we go. I've got a small civilization here. I'm expecting everybody to be dead by the end of the show.
Did either of you spend any time with Triple Triad and Final Fantasy VIII?
A little bit. I played more Triple Triad in 14.
For like a week at my high school.
Like,
People had a Triple Triad program that was like a flash game on computers that they played all the time, and I played a couple times with them, but that was all I really did with it.
because in the game, rules tended to spread in a semi-random organic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And what would always happen is you would end up with some rule spreading that you really didn't like, and then you would stop playing because you were afraid you'd accidentally spread it.
Ew.
And so because, like, for instance, the worst thing to spread usually was random, which meant that you didn't get to pick a hand of cards from your deck. You just got, random ones, so 5 bite bugs or whatever most of the time, because, those drop all the time. So, yeah, you would end up with random rules promulgating them their way through the game world. So, rules, we start off in the game local to a particular area, but over the course of time, as you move around and play, rules will spread like contagion from one region to another, and purging them is very, very difficult.
Yep. Triple Triad. At least they stopped that for the most part in 14.
Yeah, I don't really know the finer details in 14 because I was never able to get any good cards to drop.
Yeah. Most
There's
of it was
only
just
so
run-
much you can do with funguars and stuff.
You could go into dungeons and get the boss's card, which was usually decent.
Yeah, if you can. If. Big if.
The big if was getting the Hildebrand cards. Because
You got lucky. You got them. I never got boss cards. It never happened to me.
yeah, I have Ochu. Nobody likes Ochu.
Isn't Ochu that plant from Thousand Miles of Total Boredom?
Yeah, I think so too. But anywho, I did a few things over this week and the week before. I suppose I went to Brisbane and had a holiday for the first time in years. There was
A
much
holiday
nothing
with
done,
like going and seeing things,
and actually doing things. Yes,
as opposed to the way that I take holidays, which is by going to sleep.
there was also a good portion of that. My brother actually lives in a nice high-rise apartment, and if you open the door just right, you can lay on the couch, and it's just immediate nap. There is no question about it. You're just gone.
He's not as much of a hipster tool as your other brother, is he?
No, I got him playing Monster Hunter World, but he's also a PC elitist to a degree.
All right, PC Master Race.
Hurry up and announce crossplay already, Sony and Capcom. We need that crossplay.
Right, so give us the lowdown on your
Alright.
holiday and
So-
the things you got up to.
Things I did, Australia has gone a little bit Lego nuts lately. I'm not sure exactly why, because we've got a big TV show coming up about Lego, and when I made a trip over to Dreamworld just to see what is actually going on there, going on a few rides, there's this massive sale, I guess you could say, of not just modern Lego displays, but some of the really old, really expensive ones as well. Things like the that 2-foot diameter Death Star.
I see.
Yeah, I would have liked to actually.
It's a lot of grey bricks.
It is. I would have liked to spend more time in there, but I was already running to get a train at that point. But damn, some of those expensive little bits of plastic. And that's the key word, expensive. Very expensive.
Has Lego gotten more expensive over time? Like,
I
I'm not
think
really,
so.
not really sure.
I don't know. I stopped
Uh,
playing
the-
with Legos years ago.
Like, Lego is like, when I look at modern Lego, it always looks like cheating to me. Like these Legos are cheating. This isn't how Lego is supposed to look.
Well, a lot of the modern sets is you pick up a box and there's at least one unique and custom brick in there. They're not just using the standard set.
Is that an intentional move?
Maybe? I have no
Because
idea.
I remember when I was growing up, most of the time you would, if you wanted something really unique, something interesting, some interesting part, you would have to improvise it from standard ones. You wouldn't get some completely ready molded piece that represented exactly what you want. That was not a thing that happened.
Yeah. The thing is those sets now there's not a whole lot of room. You've got that unique bit, but it really only kind of works in that situation to make that specific thing. So, yeah. But Lego has definitely gotten more expensive as time's gone on.
Yeah, I mean, I know everything has, but I feel like there are certain things that have gone faster, like Warhammer.
I
My
walked
goodness.
past a Warhammer store in the big Chermside Mall, and you could just feel the suction on your wallet going past that place.
Like it's trying to crawl out of my pants. What's
Yes.
going on?
What is going on? Where is my money trying to go? It's like they had these really great models and the full battlefield set up in the middle of the shop, and it was set up ready to play, and it looked fantastic, and I wanted to throw my money at it, so I ran away.
Yeah, the thing is that I have literally had dreams about resuming playing, or at least creating and painting the models of Warhammer. But then I remember that massive, staggering capital outlay required,
Ooh, yes.
and it's just like it's not just the models. Like I've got an Eldar Wave Serpent sitting unassembled and unpainted in one of my storage boxes that I just never got around to building.
Okay.
It's waiting for me. But the amount of money that you've got to spend in getting all of the gear to do a passable job even of actually assembling and painting it is really expensive.
Yeah.
Never did model stuff ever.
But I'm
That's probably for the best.
what I'm really curious about, though, to be honest, is how Warhammer will survive contact with the era of the 3D printer.
Yes. Like, you can already go and look up 3D printable figurines. They don't have the same detail, a lot of them, that the official sets do, but that's only a matter of time.
Yeah, they're going to crest the point where you can print off of a computer something which is as good as like the sort of resin mold that you get from Games Workshop, and the fact that is that Games Workshop's quality control has gone down over the years. So yeah, apparently people have been reporting a lot more flashing, a lot more erroneous shaping, a lot more bubbles, that sort of thing. But I mean, I don't know that from personal experience. It's just the reports I've seen online. But yeah, I guess it's just that, you know, I'm a fan of the setting, and I think that the designs are really cool, and they're in that sort of I don't know what you would call it. I suppose it's a comic book style after a fashion.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like it's got elements of realism in there, in the sense that it's sort of like gritty and there's a sci-fi logic to things, but it's also just cartoony enough that it can be really cool, as opposed to being, you know, everything is brown and grey.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot about 40K that I like, but the price tag is not one of those things.
No, most definitely not. So yeah, as far as actual nerdy stuff like, I'm not going to really talk about the engagement party I went. It rained. That's pretty much all you need to know about that.
Was it outside?
It was supposed to be. You had 70 odd people crammed onto somebody's back balcony, and yeah, thankfully it was a large-ish back balcony, but you know, not with 70 people on it. So yeah, you got to meet new people whether you wanted to or not. That was fun.
Oh dear.
So the big nerdy stuff I really did is, aside from luring my brother into playing Monster Hunter World at long freaking last, is I went to see Endgame. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, because it is actually, I found to be a really, really good movie.
A good movie in its own right, or a good Marvel movie?
Well, a good Marvel movie.
Like, I mean,
Like,
for instance, Star Wars stands up, for instance, on its own as a movie. People remember it. It forms a cultural reference point. Yeah, well, when I say Star Wars, I mean Star Wars. I don't mean whatever this new thing is.
The abomination, or the unpleasantness.
But even the prequel trilogy, like, if you look at the prequel trilogy, it's by far and away miles better than the sequel.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that the third sequel movie can be good enough to redeem the previous two.
No,
but
no.
Despite the fact that they are that much better, they don't form cultural reference points. Most people can't remember the names. But everybody remembers, you know, Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. Some people don't remember Return of the Jedi because that movie was a bit jankier. But everybody remembers those first two, 4 and 5. They form cultural reference points. They're important movies that are good in their own right. I don't think there's anything in the Marvel cinematic universe which has that sort of weight.
Not that big. There might be a market impact with the very first Avengers movie to show just how successful in-universe series has the potential to be when made in movies. You have good movies, not great movies. Like, you have good Marvel movies that are genuinely good movies, like the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Or
I've heard that I liked the first Iron Man movie, but I haven't seen many of the movies. I did watch the Avengers. I didn't feel like the Avengers felt to me like sort of a for adults version of a cartoon designed to sell merchandise to children. Like that's what it seemed like
It
to
did
me.
a little bit. So
It-
for Endgame, and if you actually want a quick reference, guys, to actually watch, what to watch, I'd say, oh god, maybe the first two Iron Man movies. The third doesn't really matter that very much. Both Thor movies, but at least one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Thought there were like 3 or 4 Thor movies.
There's 3.
There's 3, yeah. You need to watch the
third-
first
the
2.
third- Well, that's
then you should-
unfortunate because those are the bad ones.
Yeah,
The third
but
one's the only good one.
Go watch
I heard the
Ragnarok
third
because
one
it's
was-
really good.
Yeah, I heard the third one was hilarious.
It is.
They just let Hemsworth go, and they did again.
He chews on all available scenery.
Him as well
Yeah.
as everybody else.
And they paired
I
it
would
with
I
the
would like
whole-
to see that at some point. I just don't know how to get to it. I don't have Netflix or anything.
It's
Yeah,
easy,
it is
actually.
on Net-
Yeah, there's like 23 different Marvel movies. It's probably easier to say which ones you can skip. You can skip Black Panther. I've skipped Black Panther and missed absolutely nothing.
Black Panther.
I like you get the few characters from Wakanda show up and they're doing things, but you know that they're just kind of tied in with Black Panther and you don't really worry about it too much further than that. I like the character, but just the whole political back and forth that was going on in that movie, just no. I mean-
The reality is that Black Panther and Captain Marvel are characters whose movies were written with an agenda.
Yeah. Incidentally, you can skip Captain Marvel, and here's why. Captain Marvel is not, for all intents and purposes, in Endgame.
Well, as far as I understood, and I don't have much understanding about Marvel, like I don't do Western comics. I thought that Marvel, the real Captain Marvel, was Thanos' sort of like nemesis.
No, that's
or something like that.
That's Adam Warlock.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is either.
But yeah, in the comics, Marvel, I'm not sure if, I can't remember if he actually died or he's just absorbed by Carol or something like that. It was kind of weird, alien janky.
But
bull
the
nonsense.
point is though that Marvel had character weight, like he had a meaning in the universe,
Yep.
and Carol Danvers doesn't mean anything. She's a
Especially in
nobody.
her Marvel Cinematic Universe incarnation. Like, she makes
Right.
appearances and she does a small thing at the start, and for all intents and purposes after that, she may as well just leave the movie entirely. And I am perfectly fine with that.
She seems like she's just a crappy answer to Superman for
Yeah.
the Marvel brand. Like it's their token character who's going to be overpowered as all get out for no reason.
Yeah. They've already got a few characters who are overpowered or get out, but they've got reasons and usually restrictions. A lot of restrictions. But,
Well, I mean, the ones that I usually think of in that context are usually the ones that don't ever seem to die for some reason, like Wolverine and Hulk.
yeah.
They seem to have borders around their characters which are largely based on their personal predilections. Something that if you've got no personality like Captain Marvel, don't really apply.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hulk is literally the highest power potential in the Marvel universe. By the way,
Oh,
Yeah.
I know because Octail would never shut up about it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, my main concern going into Endgame was, okay, they've written Captain Marvel into the cinematic universe now, and she is by her very nature a ridiculously overpowered character. So I was expecting her to swoop in and just say, "No, problem solved, movie over, go home, everyone." And
I heard that her integration into the Marvel Cinematic Universe was extremely late.
yes,
Like- They had 2 versions of whichever movie it was they did it in, both in existence almost right up to the final cut. One with her and one without her.
that was supposedly Endgame.
Right.
So the one we got is the one without.
no, I think the one we got is the one with, and they just didn't have time to put her into more scenes. That movie's been in production for how many years, dude?
Yeah. The one which was without her was a version of the movie which literally did not have Captain Marvel in it. Like it was not there at all.
As opposed to a
And
movie
they-
that may as well not have had her at all.
And they added a couple of scenes with her just as basically an excuse
The same thing they
at
did
the
with
last
Spider-Man.
minute.
Yeah.
The same thing they did with Spider-Man in Civil War.
Eh. I don't begrudge them Spider-Man partly because he's Spider-Man, but he has relevance.
You know, I never really liked Spider-Man, but I've sort of he's grown on me a bit, simply due to the fact that the more characters that they're introducing lately seem to be ones that are just like boring and serious all the time.
Yeah.
That seems to be there. It's like the Marvel that I like is the one where, you know, Tony Stark is a douche to everybody.
The one that
Thor
has the
chews the
X-Men in
scenery
it.
constantly.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say, Ari?
The one that has the X-Men in it.
The one that has the X-Men in it, yes.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen an X-Men movie in a very long time. But,
That's fine. You can watch them in any order you want because chronology doesn't matter.
does it not matter for storyline reasons, or is it just that they keep rebooting it?
Bit of both.
You might want to watch X1 before X2, but X2 is a really good movie.
X2
And Logan's a really good... X2 is an amazing movie. From what I remember, it's been a long time since I've seen it. Logan was a really good movie.
Yeah. Everything between that you can skip.
I've heard a lot of people say a lot of nice things about Logan, although it didn't do all that well at the box office, from what I hear.
Yeah.
I think apparently people felt it was too overtly conservative or something.
I think it just wasn't marketed nearly as well as it could have been. But yeah.
Yeah.
The Marvel everybody likes has these characters acting in character, has all the characters they like to begin with. And you can see the Marvel decline point where they had a few stinkers, like the Thor movies and stuff like that.
That second Thor movie was incoherent.
It really
I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, the first two Thor movies are stinkers, and they had a few bombs like that. Iron Man 3, but you can really see it right after the first Avengers movie and around the time the Ultron movie was coming out, when they started trying to push all this woke garbage, and they tried to go, we don't have the rights to the X-Men right now. You guys are going to take these irregulars and like them. And that, I think, was the biggest wake-up call to everybody that said you're never getting the X-Men, when they literally pulled a group out of comics that has already been so unsuccessful that they don't make any comics other than, you know, the token amount to say they're still relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the irregulars. It's
no
the rip-off X-Men.
Yeah. Or whatever they're called. I can't even remember their actual name.
Are they supposed to be mutants or anything? Or
Yes,
I don't know
totally
what you're talking about.
They're a different kind of mutant.
But how are they different kinds of mutants? They're either mutants or they're not.
They have a different name.
Everyone's like a magical guy or an alien or whatever, but you're either a mutant or you're not.
Yeah.
They're like alien mutants, or they consume something that turns them into these new forms after they get incubated or something, when they accidentally breathe in this gas or something. I don't know. I don't follow the irregular story at all.
So it's more of a Hulk type of thing.
Yeah, but yeah, so they are mutated rather than mutants, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody cares about them. Their comics sold terribly. The Marvel Cinematic Universe called up Netflix and said, we're making a series about these guys. We're going to push them as the new X-Men. That went over like a rock and water.
Yep.
But that's like the cinematic version of MVC Infinite. It's like the characters don't matter; they're just mechanics.
And right about then, I think that's what clued people in that we're going downhill when they tried to replace the X-Men. Everybody was okay with them not having the rights to it and just having to kind of ignore them, but the second they tried to replace them, everybody woke up and was like, "Uh-oh, we need to be careful. Yeah. Marvel movies ain't going to be so hot anymore, guys."
So,
they can't have just sold that license forever. It must expire at some point.
Oh, Disney bought Fox.
Yeah, Disney has those rights now.
So they're just never going to be turned over.
Well, from what I understand, now that this phase of the cinematic universe is done, because Endgame ends that whole, 11, 12-year run, they could potentially either reboot or just extend and bring in all of those characters.
Here's what I'm scared of. So they have the rights to the X-Men now, right?
Yep.
X-Men is probably one of Marvel's better franchises. It's the one I like the most as a series.
So they're going to destroy that next.
And it's really, really easy to do with the X-Men.
He's going to make it all about racism. Because it's basically about racism already, right?
It is, but it's done right.
It was influenced by actual racial prejudice in the 50s and 60s.
It was actually happening at the time. That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's really, really going to be easy for them to go full woke with the X-Men and just claim it's still happening.
First world problems.
Yeah, did you by any chance see? You know how Sargon of Akkad of Gamergate fame is running as an MEP.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his interview with Sky?
No, I didn't.
No, I did not.
Oh, at any rate, they try and crucify him, right? Because he's an internet shitlord,
yeah,
like the rest of us. So he says a lot of edgy stuff online.
And his thing.
So the media, being the media, they try and corner him and get him to bow and scrape and whatnot. And he's like, "No, I think racist jokes are really funny. They're the best kind of jokes." the interviewer just like.
What?
Doesn't really know how to respond to that. And he's like, look, the reason why they are funny is because Britain is not racist. Because if Britain was racist, then they would be serious and not jokes.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to explain this idea that the only reason that people are being offended by them is because they've been told to, and they've been told that there's all this racism. There's nothing visible apparent there, but he accuses the media but actually accuses the person sitting in front of him as being complicit in trying to convince everybody that there are huge racial problems in the world when there really aren't, in Britain at any rate.
Yeah,
I think there are the huge racial problems in Britain come from the police not doing their jobs because they're afraid of being called racist. That's the real problem.
Or just afraid of the people that are, actually dangerous because they're cowards.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though, is that would be speculative to say that, but we know for a fact from police testimony, that is to say, testimonies given by police, that they are too scared to do their jobs because they will lose their jobs if they do them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's true, in Britain you can be arrested for nearly anything. In Britain you can also be fired for arresting somebody if you're a policeman. So nothing gets done, basically.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
The point that I was trying to make really is that it's the media is already engaged in a concerted effort to create as much racism as possible, and if they have to make it up, if they have to make up fantastical stories about it in order for it to exist, they will do it.
And it's wonderful when they do it, because the more brazen they get, the easier it is to call them out on it. And they lose more and more credibility every day. But we're talking about Marvel.
They don't seem to be able to recognize what credibility looks like. That's the thing. So when they come up with this fabulous story that nobody buys into, they don't really understand why.
Yeah. Anywho, we've gotten off topic.
Yeah,
So
we were talking
I was
about
still
Marvel.
talking about the X-Men.
Yeah, Endgame. We were even past that,
Endgame, which doesn't feature any X-Men.
which does not feature any X-Men, and sadly does not feature a random Deadpool cameo, which I was kind of half hoping for. It is a good movie, and it does kind of wrap up the whole universe quite nicely, though there are still dangling plot threads. There always will be. Like, they never really mentioned again Pepper Potts' sudden superpowers.
Those are more lead-ins, I would feel, at this
I
point.
didn't realize that she was even a superhero. I thought she was a secretary.
She's isn't. But she got powers at the end of Iron Man 3.
Oh, right. Well, I didn't. Like, actual powers? Like, because Iron Man doesn't have any powers.
Yes,
So-
actual powers.
That's weird.
Yeah. But apparently they've just completely forgotten about that.
No, because then she can feature in the new all-female Avengers that I'm sure they've got on the boil right now.
The one that Brie Larson said she would love to direct.
Yeah, that is not going to happen.
Oh, it'd be. I want them
What-
to do it.
How
I
do they
want them to
choose
do it.
these female leads anyway? It's like the actress who plays the female lead in Star Wars, the actress playing the female lead in Captain Marvel. They all seem to go through the entire movie with a fixed frown on their face, and that's the only expression they ever make.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here I have a theory, right? So you're a raging SJW warrior. This is an impossible mindset to get into, but get yourself in the ballpark. You are a raging social justice warrior, and you are an executive at Disney, and you need to get somebody that will actually impress you in an interview. The people that are always angry, just like you, are going to be the ones you're going to hire, because there is never a time when a social jackwagon isn't angry. So they got these angry girls to play these characters.
But that's how you can tell they're strong and empowered. It's because they look grumpy all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also how you can tell somebody's a social jackwagon, is if they are just angry at everything all the time and they have no happy stories.
Well, I
Anyway.
mean, to be fair, it's not just social justice warriors that are like the alt-righters are as well. Birds of a feather, really.
Anyway. So
Boomerang effect.
So yeah, I'd recommend going to see Endgame. I'm not going to spoil anything though, because there's stuff that happens that if you're a Marvel fan is kind of a big deal. If you're not a Marvel fan, you'll have absolutely no idea what some of the significance of some of the things are, or
That's just another reason for me not to watch, to be honest.
yeah, you can enjoy
just-
it without that though.
Yeah, I
Provided-
think I would. I rather enjoyed ones that for which the corollary information is completely irrelevant, like for instance, you watch Iron Man or you watch the first Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever, and they lead into other things, but those other things are totally irrelevant. like you don't care about that crap. What you got was an entertaining lark.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm interested in watching the third Thor movie, because from all accounts it's just great fun.
Oh, it is.
If you know-
It's completely stupid fun all the way through.
Yeah, you don't need Thor lore. You just need a passing knowledge of basic Norse mythology.
Yeah, it's
And
like
you'll-
this is
you'll-
Thor. He
you'll-
has a hammer. Off you go.
Yeah, Odin is an old guy that has one eye. Loki's a trickster. Okay, we got it. Let's rock and roll.
Yep.
Also, I heard there was like a New Zealander involved with something, so I suppose I should watch it at Patch Edit.
Yeah, he's Korg. Korg in the old school Marvel was always this big, serious rock guy. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he's just kind of like everyone's best mate.
see.
It's brilliant. I think
They
he
didn't
also
do the
dies.
weird thing that sometimes happens in Hollywood, where they hire a New Zealander to do an Australian accent, do they?
No, he's a New Zealander
I hate
doing
that.
a New Zealand accent.
Okay.
It's brilliant, and you've got to go see at least it. I've got to go see it at least for that.
Is this like the difference between a Georgia and Alabama accent, that only people in Georgia and Alabama can tell the difference?
No, the differences in language and dialect in Britain are much larger than the ones in America. Much larger.
Yeah.
Because you never had aristocrats, so your society never segmented. It was just geography for America, whereas it's social class in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take your word for it.
So, and the New Zealand and Australian accents derive from different regions of Britain where the class makeups were different. So the languages have diverged quite significantly. I mean, people say they sound the same, but those people are usually Americans, not even just other English speakers. It's almost just Americans that think they sound the same.
Yeah. Right, where were we? Okay, other stuff. Other nerdy stuff. Well, so I've been playing a bit of Breath of the Wild, because that ended up being my my travel game. Some of those dungeons, yo.
What do you mean by dungeon?
Well, the Guardian Beasts.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about it or just make meaningful noises at each other?
No, I think meaningful noises at this time is sufficient. So
there, a good chunk of them have some pretty wonky design in them. I'm waiting for Fern to pick one.
yeah, I'm going to say the camel at this point. Whoever designed that needs to be drummed right out of game design.
Camels are inherently funny.
This one is not. So
the one that has the absolutely stupidest layout you've ever seen in your life.
Yes.
Of all time.
All the Guardian
Beasts... You have to get to the top of all of his humps.
Yes.
Or something like that.
All the Guardian Beast dungeons have a pretty stupid design because of the way they work. It's, oh dear, I just lost this city. Basically, you get the map, and then you can manipulate an aspect of the dungeon, which is usually, like, for the elephant, you can move its trunk so you can control where it sprays water. In the case of the camel, the central corridor of the dungeon is a rotating drum made out of 3 segments.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to rotate it around to make sure you're getting power to the right places. Also, you've got platforms so you can climb up. It's mind-bending and incredibly annoying.
It's just slow.
It is also very, very slow.
I wouldn't care about any of it if the stupid
platforms... So it's just this game's water temple.
Yeah?
It's a whole lot of waiting on moving parts in that dungeon. That one isn't anywhere near as bad as the bird, though.
I haven't done the bird yet. I found the elephant really annoying because there's one part where you need to shoot something to get a waterfall to turn on, but there's absolutely no indication as to where or what you've got to shoot. Or that you have to shoot something in the first place.
I did the bird first, and I did not know that you could manipulate those dungeons with the little iPad thing. And the bird's gimmick is you rotate the bird.
You rotate the whole bird.
You rotate the whole dungeon.
Oh dear.
And so I'm trying to do this thing and figure out how to solve these puzzles in this dungeon, coming up with absolutely stupid solutions, like throwing a bomb up and shooting it with arrows to get it close enough to a switch and stupid levels of stuff like that. To hit stuff in this dungeon that I'm not supposed to hit from the normal orientation of the bird.
I remember doing dopey crap like that in Ocarina of Time when I couldn't figure out a puzzle.
Yeah,
no. I tell you what, my first time in the Forest Temple was a freaking wake-up call.
Yep. So yeah, it's good to see that legacy continues at least.
The good news is Breath of the Wild has physics on everything, so the dopey stuff actually works.
It can.
Or at least it looks like it does.
You can get really creative.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, it looks like it does, and that's the problem with those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to keep chipping away at that because I actually want to reach the end of it, but the designs. And also, I'm going to have a quick rant about the actual approach to the Camel Dungeon. So, in order to get there, when you're approaching the thing, it's stomping around in the desert and it's shooting thunderbolts at people. So, in order to approach it, you need to surf behind a walrus.
Wait, what?
Yes. It's a desert walrus. This is how you get around in the desert.
Desert walruses can swim in sand, by the way.
Yes. But you also need to stay close to the princess who is wearing a mask, which you got through a forced stealth section, by the way. But she's got this annoying habit of sometimes she'll try to get close to you and other times she'll go, ooh, shiny, and disappear. And just go off in a random direction. And usually she does that while the laser's charging, so you die. And fairies don't help you.
Problems with that part.
Excuse me, Princess Dodgy Pig.
Yes. Well, this is Gerudo Princess, what's her name? I can't even remember her name.
Yeah,
can't be a very compelling character then.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
But this is my biggest problem with Breath of the Wild is it just nothing is memorable because it tries to be Skyrim without any permanent loot.
Yeah. Like, there's bits and pieces about the game I like. I don't mind the free roaming and the exploration, and the gliding makes things so much more interesting on that front. But let's face it, start with the obvious flaw, weapon degradation.
Yeah. That is 50 points off a game score for me right away.
Yeah.
There must be people in the market that think that that's just the best feature ever because people keep doing it.
Those people are wrong. It can be good in the right situation.
I don't know if I agree with if it's ever over and in the game, it's always a problem for me. I've never seen a system that has weapons that break where I've been like, that's a good idea.
As far as I'm concerned, the only time in which your weapon should break when you're on an adventure is when the DM says it needs to for plot reasons. Like, that's the only reason. It should never for any other reason.
Not even
should your
natural
weapon
ones.
Well, I mean, the DM decides what happens.
Yeah.
In that case.
At that point,
and
it
the DM
becomes
can decide
that
that it's time for your bowstring to snap.
Yeah.
If they decide it. But, I mean, if a DM knows that, oh, well, you rolled this one natural one, you're going to, take somebody entirely out of combat for that. That's their call. And if it's a bad call, then it was a bad call.
A snap bowstring is like 2 1s and a 5 on back-to-back rolls.
You got to have some really bad rolls or a really bad DM, I suppose.
Your bow actually, the wood on your bow actually flips backwards and bops you in the face.
You actually somehow manage to shoot yourself in the face.
Your arrow goes off a completely random direction. You don't kill yourself, but you just KO'd yourself with your own bow. Congrats.
Anyway. I'm going to leave it there for my week, I think. I've still got other stuff to talk about.
Didn't you say you were going to see a stage show?
Oh, right, I did. The Book of Mormon. On Easter Sunday, because my family has a rather weird sense of humour.
I bit one of those once.
What, you bit a Mormon?
Yeah.
Why?
I've told the story before.
Yeah, Ari doesn't like Mormons at all because they always come and bother him at odd hours of the day.
Right.
He stuck his hand in my face.
Okay. So, Mormon biting. Right.
You know this story. I know I've told it on the show before.
I think you may have told it, but I can't remember. It must have been a while ago.
It was a while ago.
So, yeah.
It was.
So, the Book of Mormon is a very, very silly stage show. Admittedly, we were up in the nosebleed seating, but thankfully the way the Brisbane Expedition Centre is set up, you can see pretty well up there as well. It's about a Mormon missionary who's fresh out of Mormon school, who gets sent to, I believe it was Nigeria, to try and spread the word of Mormonism. And he's got with him, of course, his bumbling sidekick, the goofy fat nerd. I'm not going to spoil it because I think it's actually a story you really just should see to appreciate properly.
Well, it's written by the South Park guys.
It is written by the South Park guys, but it actually has a fairly positive message at the end. Instead of, their usual cynical and snarky one.
I see.
But it was funny. Just laugh all the way through it. Just goofy jokes. Knowing prods at Mormonism. Knowing prods at Catholicism as well, admittedly. It's just good, dumb fun. And it does have, like I said, a thoughtful and interesting message right at the end.
I've seen parts of it before, a long time ago on YouTube or something, but have not ever seen this whole stage show.
I recommend you go see it. If it comes around, go and watch it. If anything else, just for the songs, which are just dumb and goofy as well. That's been the majority of my holiday. There was a lot of loafing around time as well. There was other nerdy bits and pieces and more video games played. I did play some of Smash Brothers as well with Joker. We'll talk about that later in the episode, or later in the show.
Okay, I mentioned my first impressions with Joker last week, so.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Vol, your week, sir.
My week was not particularly filled with wild events or anything like that. I didn't do much. I foolishly opted to work on Anzac Day because time and a half and a day in lieu. Though I don't know if they're going to give me the day in lieu or whether they'll pay it out because they don't like giving people extra leave because it means that they might take it. So I took the money. I should not have. It was bad. It's not the worst public holiday that I've ever worked. There've been some really painful ones, but after taking a few in a row, usually I'm like, I've taken a few public holidays now. Maybe I should risk working one, see how it goes. and it's always bad. It always goes badly. Because the people arranging the roster always make the same assumption I make. They always make the assumption that it'll be a light day because nobody's at work. The thing with that is that a light day stops being a light day when you're by yourself and you have to do all of the work. So, yeah. So I worked that day and I regretted it, but the money will be coming, and I'm counting on that to make it all worth it. Although I don't spend that much money. Maybe I should just throw it at the gacha. Speaking of the gacha, the CCC event, CCC crossover event is live on FGO, and it is a great event. In fact, it's almost a misnomer to call it an event. It's only an event because it's limited time. But realistically, it's almost as big as a chapter, like a main Singularity chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and it's quite good. High production values compared to previous ones. Written by Nasu, I think. In this case, it digs pretty deeply into CCC lore in a few places, which makes it almost incomprehensible to Westerners. But there's enough just general slapstick to keep it entertaining regardless. But the story is rather dark. Like, clearly when Nasu wrote this, he'd just come out of a meeting with the Ura Butcher.
Oh dear.
So it's mainly the backstory that is dark rather than the current narrative, which is just more or less standard. But yeah, it's a fun event. It's oriented in the same way that the Kara no Kyokai one was, where you've got a list of 100 missions to complete, and a shop to buy stuff from and whatnot. But it's quite a complicated event in terms of the order in which you pick to do things, because it's often complicated, these events, because the gating is very harsh. It can be harsh. You can get stuck grinding inefficient things, which happened to me in the Fate Zero event. I got stuck grinding stupid things because I made poor decisions about which gates to unlock first. So this time I decided to shortcut it instead of wasting hundreds of AP by looking up a guide, so I knew what order to buy the keys in, rather than, buying them as they became available, which is always a trap. Don't do it.
Yes.
Don't ever buy all the keys as they become available, because they are lying to you. They want you to buy the ankle key, but you don't need the ankle key for anything. Not till the very end. So, yeah. But yeah, it's a fun event. I'm enjoying it. I rolled all of my quartz away on the gacha and did not get melt, which is all I was interested in. Like, if I'd blown all of my Saint Quartz and just gotten melt, I would have been happy. Instead, I got a pile of stuff. Just none of it was stuff that I was rolling for. That's the problem. I still have continued my streak of having no good craft essences.
Mm-hmm.
That epic streak. And I don't know why this happens to me, but it always does. So yeah, I'm still don't have any of the real key ones. I've got no fragments. I've got no Prismacosmos. I've got no Kaleidoscope. None of no limited zero over. I've got none of the good ones. Just none of them. It's just everything's horrible forever on the CE front for me, which is astonishing given the amount of Saint Quartz that I've rolled now. I haven't managed to get any good CEs. Like, at this point, my luck with CEs has surpassed my worst run of bad luck with servants. But what I did get, Gold Servant wise, is I got 2 copies of Suzuka, who has been given a new lease of popularity since Shield Hero started airing, which amuses me somewhat. It amuses me because Raphtalia and Suzuka, while looking superficially somewhat similar, could not have more different personalities. It would not be possible for them to be more wildly different. And I got 3 copies of Melt's boob monster sister, Passionate, which I would have been perfectly happy to get no copies of her, because honestly, she creeps me out. But no, I've got 3 copies of her. I also pulled Marie Antoinette, who's not really good for any particular teams.
She's good for not dying.
Yeah, but I've got tank builds that I've arranged that are better than using her in isolation. Because while she is tanky, she doesn't really work with other tank enablers. Like if you're
No.
going for a long-term survival team, you want to go heavy arts and have like Jean and Mash and Tamamo or something like that if you just want to survive forever. But Marie doesn't work very well with them.
No.
Because she's quick servant for some reason. But she's someone else to add to the collection, and she's cute, so I'm not going to argue with it. And I also got another copy of Emir, which is welcome because that puts him on NP2, and considering he's one of my most heavily used servants, I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of that. So yeah, the gacha was not kind to me in the way I wanted. However, it was more kind than normal to me in terms of things I really didn't want. So I have Noble Phantasm level 3 Passion Lip. Passion Lip is quite usable. She's not great, but she's quite usable in the sense that she's quite good at when you're going up against a lot of riders. The big problem is that most of the supports that you're liable to use in a scenario like that are casters, and they tend to get wrecked.
Yeah.
Passion Lip is neutral on receiving damage to all classes, pretty much, and does 50% bonus damage to cavalry classes, and has a relatively tanky kit to work with. So she's and she's got a short cooldown taunt as well. So she's quite good for sucking the attention of riders away from your support to keep them alive long enough to do their job, if you're inclined to use Passion Lip. Suzuka, on the other hand, Suzuka is used in a way almost the same as Emir, but it does a little bit less upfront damage and is better at the crit phase of play. Because they're both characters which are not... They're focused largely on generating a pile of stars and then using them. So they generate Noble Phantasm, blow Noble Phantasm, get a small mountain of stars, and then use their follow-up turn to capitalize on. Suzuka's a little bit better at it than Emir. Emir does more damage, like straight up damage up front. So, and he's better at generating Noble Phantasm. Suzuka a little bit lacking. So, yeah. I bled myself dry on tickets and St. Quartz to no avail. There's still more tickets to come. The month will roll over soon, and then I'll blow those, and I'll bleed as much quartz as I can out of the event, and then I'll blow those. And if I'm still unlucky, I'll probably end up getting tempted to whale at least a little bit, because this banner just doesn't come around very often. Like the next time you get a chance at melt, not counting the 1 in 100 chance you're going to get her on the GSSR, it's going to be like another year or something until she appears on a banner again.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like another year again after that. So, sort of tough to get her. But yeah. I don't really need her for any team in particular, but she would pair very, very well with Skadi. But I think Mysterious Hero and X Alta also would pair very well with Skadi, so I don't really need her, but she's very, very effective at just laying beatdowns in the quick format. So if you've got a couple of quick servants, you can pretty much use them to self-sustain each other. But yeah, the welfare for this event, BB, is unique in her class. The only other Moon Cancer is also BB. That is to say, Summer BB, who will appear in, about a year and a half or so.
Okay.
But
Summer BB's the busted one, right? With the lock your skill card stuff.
Yeah, she's the really busted one. She's like S+ tier, because she can break the game in so many different ways. Like it's not so much that she's a game breaker by herself. Like by herself, she's sort of like an A++ tier. She's an S++ tier because the moment you pair her with somebody else who is meta breaking, they break the meta's meta pretty much together. That's the problem.
just get her on a team with anybody that can mono card Brave Chain and lock the cards.
Oh, you don't even need to do that. Like, if you get her on a team with like Shiki or Ryoma or somebody who's really, really good at generating Noble Phantasm and then using it, like those are welfares. And you pair them with Summer BB and lock them in a chain with lots of arts, and they'll just Noble Phantasm after Noble Phantasm. If you say you've got Shiki, you use Mysticizer's Depth Perception, get Tamamo to put Fox's Wedding on her, couple of other buffs maybe, give her Formal Craft, and then lock her with 2 arts cards up, you're going to get 3 turns in a row of her insta-murdering whatever she's pointed at. Like, it's Summer BB breaks the game, but she doesn't break it as bad as Merlin did, because you still need to have, a way of pushing the damage from being standard into being excellent, which is, Buster Brave chains are great and all, but Buster Brave chains are not really worth that much if you aren't augmenting them with some kind of strategy. It's when you combine BB with another standard strategy that makes her ridiculously powerful, because she will allow that strategy to be executed in its optimal form for 3 turns in a row instead of 1. That's the issue there. But the current BB is the normal BB, the 4-star. And she's a strange servant, very effective when used correctly, but you have to build around her because her Noble Phantasm is very generous. It charges the party by 20%, I think, which is really good. But she doesn't play well with others of that archetype because of that. Like, the other major Noble Phantasm group charger is Tamamo, and you normally want to put Tamamo later in a chain, but if you put her later in a chain, then she's not going to get any benefit from having BB ahead of her. So, generally speaking, you want to use BB's Noble Phantasm by herself and build a team around her, because most of her abilities are very selfish and her damage is quite trash. But she has got absolutely monstrous HP for a 4-star. Like 13k or something like that as a 4-star with no foos. But yeah, so she's going to be an interesting servant to pair with other things, particularly things that are very agnostic about whether or not they get chained. Like, for instance, Jean. Like, if you have Jean and BB and someone else to support the stall, you could probably just cherry tap them down with BB's slightly lackluster Noble Phantasm damage while being completely immortal due to the fact that Jan keeps trotting out immortality every time there's something threatening. And if you've got another healer in the mix as well, that work really well. BB really needs crit, though, in order to work well, so maybe putting Hans in there would help. Yeah, there are a lot of strategies, but they're all idiosyncratic ones. They're not standard ones, because of the fact that you've got to build around BB. Anyway, what else did I do this week? Unless you've got some commentary on that, Ari.
Not really. I rolled the Gacha 2. I was just hoping to see what I could get. I wanted either Melt or Lip. I didn't particularly care which one I got. I got 1 copy of the 5-star C and a few other servants. I think I got Liz.
I wish I'd gotten Liz. I like Liz. Like, I used Brave Liz as my point servant for taking down Passion Lip in the boss battle that I just did this morning. Like,
yeah,
Liz is one of my favorites. I wish I had more copies of her, but I've only got 1 copy of the standard Liz.
So yeah, I got
use
Liz
her all the time,
and I got 1 copy of the 5-star CE. I Major League Baseball the 4-star CE.
So did I. I'm just sort of annoyed about that. I don't really care about that.
Yeah, it was not a good CE. And yeah, overall it wasn't good pulls for me either, but it happens.
I've got a number of servants for whom that 4-star is actually really good, so it will see some use after the event probably, because I've got a lot of servants that capitalize on Buster and Noble Phantasm.
Yeah.
So like for instance, Kiyohime has 1 arts card and 2 buster cards, but because her buster has a bajillion hits on it, it's really effective at charging Noble Phantasm. So you want to use ABB and AQB as much as possible.
Yeah, it's like giving quick up to Scotty is the best way to make her Noble Phantasm go up faster.
Yeah, but
Skaha.
I've got like friggin' 3 copies of the 5-star event CE, and I don't even care. Like the thing is those, they are useful for filling out certain quests, but when it comes to farming raw currency, it's the event ones from the missions that are most important, because you farm most of your event currency off of Sakura mobs, which the appearance rate of Sakura mobs comes from stuff you earn during the event, not from the gacha. So the gacha ones, not awesome. They're mainly to sucker other people into borrowing your servants. But yeah. I also enjoyed the start of the event. Like, one of the earliest bosses you fight in the event is BB herself, being a moon cancer, the only class weak to rulers. And so
right. I remember Dragon John for that fight.
I capitalized on the fact that I have a freshly minted 10-10-10 fully max food level 100 Martha ruler who just completely punched BB's face off. And like, the thing is that not only is BB weak, but because BB's got divine traits, she is taking 400% damage or whatever from Martha. So
wow.
Yeah. It was ugly. It was ugly. I almost felt bad, but not really, because BB's horrible.
I felt worse for that demon pillar.
Yeah, the demon pillar that follows after the battle with Passion Lip is a bit anticlimactic.
That's you go through the Passion Lip fight is not a super difficult fight, but it was way harder than I was expecting that to be.
There's a lot that can go wrong, especially when she changes buffs. Like, if you can burn through the first phase before she, with only having to deal with 1 Noble Phantasm, then you'll be fine, probably, provided that you can survive the sheer length of the second phase.
It takes forever to chew through her health pool in the second phase. And the third phase, for me, was kill her or bust. Like, blow all NPs immediately with full buffs, or you're just going to get insta-killed.
Yeah, I blew all my Noble Phantasms and buffs in the first one, so to chunk her first bar. Second bar, I didn't have so much trouble with, because like I said, I made Liz my point person, because Liz is adorable. And it just so happens that Liz ignores defense buffs. Brave Liz. So it didn't take me as long as it might have if I'd chosen another servant, but because Liz is my like Noble Phantasm 5 Knight class single target Noble Phantasm character, like, she was optimal for doing damage. It just so happens that she's also optimal for working around Passion Lip. But yeah. So that didn't go so badly for me.
Yeah, it was mostly the third phase where I would get there a little drained and not ready to MP her butt off, and she would one-shot all my dudes.
I was bleeding by the time I got to the last one. Like, Liz was basically almost on full health the entire fight. Like, she was still standing at the end, looking barely scratched. I had lost everybody else. Like, my supports got shredded. Martha dealt 1 really linchpin Brave Chain before getting wrecked. My others just got wrecked. Shiki was standing at the end but didn't do anything because Liz took care of business. But I also found that sort of an amusing contrast. Like, Passion Lip, the character whose boobs can barely be contained by her clothing because she's such an abnormal figure. And Liz, the one whose bikini plate mail is in fact too large for her.
Yeah.
It was an interesting fight. It was a huge difficulty spike and caught me off guard for the first attempt. Second,
yes, like, you want me to do what? Like, I'm just glad she didn't. I'm glad she didn't have the like 1.5 million hit points she has the first time you meet her or whatever.
Yeah, I'm dragging around like the first attempt, I drug in like a support that was just there for soccer chip drops. Because I'm like, oh,
That's
okay,
not wise, sir. That is not wise.
like I'll just take my own waiver as my support. It'll probably survive until she has 2 break bars. Oh boy.
Anytime I see that it's clearly a boss battle, I go and load it for bear. Like I forget about drops, and those aren't important.
Well, yeah. So I got Shrek'd the first time I tried it. Switched up the team, went full try hard, like Mash, Memeland, and I forget who my point character was, and yeah, didn't. It was going fine and slow until the last phase when she just decided to insta kill all my characters with a chance to kill on hit.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it's a really small chance too, but sometimes you get unlucky.
Yeah, she just obliterated me. So the third time I went into it, I'm just like, okay, Gil, Memeland, here's what we're gonna do. Memeland, you sit in the back. I got a job for you later.
She only used
restarts.
I think she only used Trash and Crash on me once or twice, which was the one that gives her the 10% insta kill chance on hit, and it only works for one time. Like if she insta kills somebody, she won't insta kill somebody else. Like the buff will drop off.
Yeah.
But if she gets lucky, you get real unlucky.
Yeah, she was always going buff. Whack.
She stuns herself.
Fight win.
She stuns herself if she uses it. She can't use it she can't kill somebody on the turn that she uses Trash. So
if I had not gone in with a team meant to just stay alive forever, it would not have been a problem, I don't think. But she wrecked my front line, and my back line was not prepared with the right C's.
There are some fights like that you just can't go in with a team calibrated to survive. Like I found that was the case with Moriarty. That's a spoiler, Archer of Shinjuku. I found that was the case with Archer of Shinjuku as well, that you can't go in there trying to survive. You've got to punch him in the face until he stops moving. That's the only way to survive.
Yeah. So
anywho.
Yeah, she went down. Gil blew her up.
Gil seems to blow everything up. I guess she must be weak versus a Numa Unleashed.
Yeah.
Like everything else that isn't Drake. Okay, what else did I play? For some reason, I decided to do one of the things that I periodically do, and it's sort of like how
oh no,
I start Titan Quest all the time,
mm-hmm.
Which was to start another character in Neverwinter Nights 2.
Oh dear, it's that time of year again, is it?
Yeah, it's that time of year again. But because I knew how it was going to go, and that I wasn't really interested in paying much attention, I just rolled another monk. Because the thing with monks is, you basically become a god with enough levels.
You are the master of the saving throw.
Yeah, like you can just like you are the trap handler. You do not need a rogue. You've handled the traps by stepping on them because nothing is going to catch you. Yeah. And of course, Neverwinter Nights is a notorious mechanic for handling disease.
Yeah.
So, in Neverwinter Nights and Neverwinter Nights 2, you get a disease, and the disease will have effects which apply when enough time passes. And time, of course, passes when you rest. And Neverwinter Nights being the way it is, you have to rest a lot. It's not like a real Dungeons & Dragons campaign where, the DM will give you a chance to take a breather if he knows that you're going to get shreked for no good reason in the next fight.
Mm-hmm.
But in Neverwinter Nights, you can rest whenever there are no enemies nearby, sort of thing. And you need to. The thing is that because that makes time pass and diseases apply ability score damage when time passes, every time you rest, if you need to pass 2 constitution saves in a row in order to get rid of the disease, I think it's modeled. But since a lot of characters can't reliably do that, you just end up marching around with a party of people who have like 4 points of strength and 4 points of constitution and 4 points of dexterity and that sort of thing, who basically die anytime the wind picks up. So the monk allows you to work around that as well, because when you hit like 6th level or something, 5th or 6th level, you just lose the ability to contract disease. Yeah, it's like no, this is no longer a problem for me. Is the situation here? So, yeah, um,
I haven't played Neverwinter Nights 2 in forever.
yeah, it's certainly long-winded. It's also very janky on modern computers.
Yeah.
You sometimes need to fiddle around a bit, but what I have found is that about 75 to 80% of problems can be resolved by restarting your computer.
It does that weird thing where they time the frame rates to your computer's clock speed as well.
Yeah, which is weird.
It's
When
weird.
you've got multiple cores, it will of course randomly choose to read from a core which is busy doing other stuff in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of weird crap with that, but yeah, I still like the game
Yeah.
more or lessly. I don't love it the way I loved the first one, but I
The
still
first
like
one
it.
has Deacon. I mean, you don't need anything better than that.
Yeah, and that was what I actually originally I wanted to play the first one again, and then I realized that I would actually have to look for my discs. So
Oh, that'll get the remaster.
I'd have to buy the remaster though.
Yeah.
It's not cheap for some reason.
No,
If
it's
it-
not.
If it was $20, I would have just bought it. That would have been the end of it, but it wasn't quite in that price range.
We'll probably
So-
have the summer sale coming up in a bit, so
Yeah, I think I
save
might
for
have to pick it up because I would really like to play it again.
One of these days I will reach the end of their base campaign. But the base campaign is bad.
Did you never finish it?
Never finished it, no. I always kind of get bored. I have finished the
I
expansions,
did it-
though.
The problem with it is that the middle chapters are all very samey.
And very bland.
Yeah, like well,
Yeah.
I think one of them would have been fine, but the problem is that it's the one that, like Act 3 looks almost the same as Act 2.
Yeah.
That's the problem, and it's not even really that the like if you'd played it on the tabletop, I think that nobody would notice. People wouldn't be worried about it. But I
Mhm.
think that because it's based in a visual medium, you can just see all too clearly that the tile sets are exactly the same, and
Yeah.
it makes it more boring than it would be otherwise.
Besides,
but
if it's
yeah.
a tabletop, by the end of the second chapter, somebody would have organised an old orc conga line or something.
Our tabletop is literally just a cardboard top that's white with squares on it.
Yeah, a lot of people just use that.
Like, we don't do the fancy sets when I DM.
Actually, I know a guy who's got a one of those cheap plastic foldable tables you can get, and he's just covered that whole thing with grids, and that's his DM
Nice.
board.
That's actually a really good idea. I should get one of those.
Yeah, so to buy the full edition of Neverwinter Nights with all of the extra modules in that costs like $65 on Steam.
Worth.
So
Yeah, that's like 50 US not doing that.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Yeah. the base one's 25 New Zealand. So yeah, but if I'm going to buy it again, I want to buy all the bits. So I'll wait for it to go on deep discount.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I played that. What else? I poked at a couple more anime. I'm going to poke at some more, but generally speaking, I haven't been terribly impressed for the most. I talked about a couple of them last week. Them being Isekai Quartet, which is really funny, but like I said last week, the ReZero cast pretty much just fall flat. It's
Yeah.
they don't fit. They're not funny. So yeah.
Yeah.
But the Konosuba class cast blow the others out of the water for being comical.
Completely
with
and
the
utterly
Overlord ones.
insane.
The Overlord ones being a close second.
Overlord, it's a serious anime, but it has a lot of potential to be an extremely goofy anime.
It's because everybody in there is an idiot. And,
Yes.
they're all evil, but they're also really stupid.
Yes.
So, but I think the part that I liked the most about Isekai Quartet in the first episode that I watched was the fact that the internal monologue for Momonga is the same as the internal monologue for Kazuma.
Oh no.
Because they're basically the same type of person. It's just one of them is an immortal god and one of them is the isekai protagonist who didn't get any powers.
Yes.
And instead got most useless goddess.
He really kind of lucked out on that. Just
Yeah.
Aqua is completely
I've
useless.
I've sort of been amused to see that the useless goddess memes seem to have picked up a long time after Konosuba's run, and
Yeah.
they've become a lot more common lately. I wonder why that is. But yeah, so yeah, I enjoyed that. Like I mentioned last week. What other ones did I look at this week? There was one called Fairy Gone, which has it's attracted a lot of opprobrium for being boring and generic from fans, from people who watch anime. I don't know if that's because the YouTube commentariat has said that, or because the YouTube commentariat said the opposite, which seems to be what dictates most online opinions on anime.
It depends on what one section of the YouTube commentary it says.
Like, because
Mostly now.
the one section of I don't know about the people on YouTube who talk about anime, other than that I have blanketly dismissed them as all being worthless. But what seems to happen is that if they say it's good, their fans will all worship it, and their detractors will all say it's crap. And if they say that it's bad, their fans will all say it's bad, and their detractors will all try and find ways of redeeming it and defend it.
YouTube.jpg,
Like,
really?
It's just that it's this completely partisan activity that has nothing to do with the content.
Mm-hmm.
It's all because of one Jack Waffle, who his name is Digibro. I've talked about him before. He's just a total hipster douche canoe.
Oh dear.
And like he thinks he's the king of anime.
Is he sponsored by Crunchyroll?
Of course he is. They're all sponsored by Crunchyroll. But in general, he will call out other anime reviewers for being terrible, and he has a huge following that blew up during the My Little Pony thing when he did pony reviews first before he did anime. And now people, for some reason, he has attracted this following that is cult-like around this horrible person. And whatever he said, group will behave like you said. I see my latency spiking to red. I hope I'm not lagging.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said.
What just happened there?
Okay. Yeah, so I think it spiked and took it a second to tell me it was red. But yeah, so the Digibro guy has a cult-like following around him that operates basically like you said. He will say something is good, and they will say, "Oh, yes, it's the greatest thing ever. Digibro said so," and his detractor will almost reflexively take the opposite stance because he's a douche canoe and a hipster douchebag.
Yeah, so it's all about the person. It's not about the content.
The rest of the anime community, in air quotes, on YouTube, isn't really present anymore. They've all kind of been dismissed, except for Giguk, who is mostly a comedy guy.
Mm-hmm.
He focuses more on making his content entertaining than properly reviewing the shows.
Wasn't there some other guy, what's his name, like Basement thing?
Yeah, Mother's Basement.
No, he's got a following, but it's irrelevant. Nobody cares what that tard thinks.
Right, well, at any rate, I've decided, having looked at the comments on Fairy Gone by accident, actually, I decided that I didn't care, and I'll just watch it anyway, like I usually do, because, you know, half of them reviled it, and the other half thought it was really promising, and there was no middle ground. So it made me suspicious if somebody had voiced an opinion on it, whether it was a major YouTube figure or, you know, the same pattern gets repeated by, you know, parallel cults on like 4chan or whatever, or Reddit, where they'll just form into two camps and go at it. But anyway, this story is sort of it's set in a alternative world sort of thing, and it's sort of like a blend of fantasy and steampunk is the wrong term. I don't know what actually powers things. It may or may not be steam. At any rate, there's magic as well. But how do I say? The visual aesthetic is a strange blend of like 18th century and roaring 20s.
Huh.
So you've got soldiers who all look like, you know, redcoats, for instance, and using cannon. But you also have modern bolt-action rifles and female characters wearing trousers and that sort of thing. and
Okay.
the mafia are a major force in urban affairs. So it's a weird mishmash of elements from like late gunpowder age and early 20th century. So I'm not really sure how to describe it. You'll see what I mean if you look at it. It's relatively nice to look at. It seems to be trading primarily on the relationship between two girls, one of which who were basically from the same village that got burned down by an expat from that village as an act of trying to control a type of super weapon in war. And they got separated when they were young after they fled the village, and then one of them spent all their time looking for the other one, and the other one sort of sunk deep down into dark conspiracies and that sort of thing. At any rate, the core conceit, the core fantasy conceit, is that there are these sort of like more or less invisible creatures referred to as fairies that sort of live in some places around the world. And it was found that during the war, it was found that you could capture them in containers that rendered them visible, and then surgically transfer an organ from them into a human, which would give the human the ability to, I'll say, summon a persona, because that is more or less it. It's like it's somewhere between, a stand and a persona. But yeah, so these fairy soldiers basically became the super weapons for each side, because they massively outclassed the regular soldiery. And there are also a handful of there seem to be like a handful of rare individuals that a fairy can voluntarily possess them and give them similar powers without having illegal surgery done on them. But apparently the war ended, and it ended with fairy soldiers still standing, and they are, of course, illegal weapons now. So the only venue for them is to basically go underground with the mafia or whatever, or become, like the term that anime loves so much, dogs of the government.
Oh boy.
So basically the main protagonist is one of these girls who ends up getting signed up with the government because she becomes one of these rare people who are fairy possessors, and the only way that she could not end up, and she had already joined the mafia before that in order to try and get underworld information on her friend. So she's basically got a rap sheet a mile long as a result of just that, even though she hasn't done any crimes as such other than exist. So she basically signs up with the government and to avoid ending up in the clink instantly. And basically the story proceeds from there. So she's a protagonist who has powers, but she's clearly outclassed by everybody around who is way more experienced with them than she is. Yeah, and she's too much of a nice person to do her job properly all the time. So it's fairly generic as far as premises go, but it looks nice enough. A lot of people have reported the music is quite intrusive, and I can totally understand that, because it's a lot of the sort of action scene music has lyrics, which is really unpopular with a lot of people.
It tends to get in the way a lot.
Yeah, so yeah, and I can understand that, but I did not find anything about it that put it on the 1 episode drop list, so I'll probably pick at it a bit more. What else did I check out this week? There was one thing, but what's it called? Do I have a Crunchyroll window or link or something around that I can check the name of it? Come on, internet, why you fail me now? Can't find it now. Oh, right, in English, Wise Man's Grandchild. This is awful, please avoid it.
Oh dear.
It's just bad. There was a series a while back, and this is an isekai. There's a series a while back that uses a similar conceit, that the character dies outright, but rather than being reincarnated intact the way, say, Rimuru was, they just become reincarnated in the normal fashion. But there is like they have retained that. Well, they're a different person with a different personality, but they've retained bits and pieces of knowledge from their previous life. They aren't that person anymore, but they know a few things here and there. So this conceit was used in a series a while back, which was about a Gundam fanatic who died and then was reincarnated in a world where giant robots were a thing.
Did he fall into a cockpit?
They're magic giant robots. No, he didn't fall into a cockpit because he was reincarnated.
Oh, there's a
so
twist.
he was born from the start. He lived in that world from the start.
Right.
But he was he was a programmer who was a Gundam fanatic. And it just so happens that the magic systems in the world operated similar to programming. It wasn't programming, but the concepts were the same, and he already had them when he was born, sort of as instinctual knowledge. So when it came to learning magic, he was just faster than everybody else. He couldn't do things that other people couldn't do, but he was a prodigy. Right. And he also loved robots way more than was healthy. Like, he comes across as an obsessive. But as a result, this drives him to basically innovate by basing things off Gundams that he, for some reason, knows about, although he has no idea why he would have any such weird knowledge. And so he basically becomes a big innovator of industry, as opposed to, a magical super soldier. Yeah. At any rate, that's how that one goes. In this case, we have got a guy who is a normal salaryman who's reincarnated as a guy who's basically, he gets picked up by Merlin, basically. Not the Merlin we know from FGO, but a classical old beardy guy.
Right.
Who basically adopts him because his parents get killed in a incident with a demon when he's very young. And basically, so he gets raised by Merlin, but he gets raised out in the WOPs with no real contact with broader society by a doddering old idiot who happens to be the world's greatest magical genius. So the kid he reaches Merlin levels of knowledge very, very early on in life, and therefore becomes another prodigy type. But what he doesn't know, and it's a funny conceit, it's a pity it's poorly executed, is that this Merlin guy isn't just the old hermit that he thinks his adoptive grandpa is. He is actually a national hero, and everybody that this kid grows up knowing are actually like kings and lords and magical geniuses, and that captains of the guard, military folk. These are all like the uncles and aunties that he grows up with that he doesn't know because he's an idiot. Because the one thing that Merlin never teaches him throughout his entire childhood is to have a lick of common sense. So he basically ends up being a super prodigy who has no idea that he's a super prodigy, and he has no idea that he's basically the upper crust, because he's lived in a log cabin in the woods for his entire life until he turns like 15 or 16 or something. So it has the makings of an entertaining comedy, but it's not a comedy. That's the problem.
Blah. It's
just a garden variety wish fulfillment isekai. And so basically he runs into girls and he wows everybody with his incredible powers. He manages to accomplish grand feats of magic that nobody has ever heard of, and create sort of national treasure level artifacts by accident and that sort of thing. So it's just the most banal and uninteresting kind of wish fulfillment isekai gets attached to it. It's basically, another world in another world with my smartphone tier of meaningless accomplishment, where he never has to earn anything. And the reason why I mentioned the other series earlier is because in that series, the payoff the payoff is obtained in exchange for the main character being a weirdo, and it basically being viewed as comical that the only thing he's really interested in is building giant robots. Whereas this guy is just like, he's got no personality other than being a bit of an idiot and a genius at everything that he attempts. Because he's been trained by the best, even if he doesn't know they're the best. So yeah, it's super, 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 super bland and not not even a good generic execution, because you can get those sometimes, right? Where they don't do anything particularly new, but they execute everything with precision in a way that isn't engaging. This does not do that. This is bad. This is in another world with my smartphone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just leave it alone. It's not worth your time.
Avoid.
It may in fact be bad for your health. So don't do it. Just don't.
Just say no.
Yeah, just say no. Don't do drugs, kids. Or bad isekais. I think I'll leave it there.
Okay, so we should probably take a break because we've been at it for a while.
We should. We have a lot coming up after the break, though, so this show might be a little long, folks. We'll see y'all when we get back. I would bring us back, but my bar went red.
Well, that was unpleasant. We are back, though, by the way.
Yep, we're back. So we were in Vol's week, and we still got a lot to go.
Yeah. I don't have anything else much to mention other than I managed to take down Arch-Tempered Valhazak this afternoon, which was unbelievably stressful, and I dread the thought of having to do it more time.
You got to do it at least 5 times. Well, okay, 4, because the gloves are kind of garbage.
They've got so many slots, though.
They do have a lot of slots.
Is there for Arch-Tempered sets, is there a layered armor?
To actually get the layered armor version, not that I'm aware of.
I was just curious.
The layered armor set the whole layer armored system I find is just horribly underutilized in that game.
They've been getting better
They
gradually,
have.
a little at a time. But I think that it'll probably maybe they'll do a big push for it in Iceborne, or maybe they'll just keep trickling them out since it gets people to come back to the game.
Yeah, I'd love to see him do it. Give it a good push in Iceborne,
I think they need to push gear design in general in Iceborne.
particularly weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if they want to keep them a little bit less wacky than some of the other entries to the series, but
I don't know. I want to see people running around with a gigantic knife and fork for their dual blades.
well, the thing is that the tone of world is a little bit different.
A little bit more
I feel
serious.
like they're going for something a bit more realistic. Not a lot more real, just a bit more
Just a
realistic.
bit.
But you know, the Meowscular hammer.
There's still plenty of room for silly.
Oh dear, oh dear.
So Ari, you're
Moving on to Ari's week.
So, did Vol have anything left before I do my week?
I just did.
Okay. So, we went tangenting again. So,
badly.
yes. So my week, I have a bit of media to talk about. I have 2 books, audiobooks. Well, 1.5 audiobook. Well, one in an ongoing audiobook series.
This number is shrinking.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. The amount is still quite substantial. And a little bit about Borderlands 2 because it is my audiobook game, and audiobooks have been the media I have wanted to consume, and I just need something to do with my hands while I do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll save the Borderlands 2 talk for last because I will probably be continuing to chug at it a bit while I get my act together with the audiobooks. It's just a really, really easy game to play while I'm listening to stuff because I don't have to pay attention to anything other than where's the critical hit spot on the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Which is usually the head.
Or it's usually the armpit because loaders are the most important thing to get crits on.
Ah, yes.
But, yeah. So, the first audiobook. We'll talk about the more popular mainstream series, or book first. This is a singular book, not a series, by Neil Gaiman. And normally, I'm not a big fan of Neil, like, at all. I am passably okay with his stuff. I thought his Norse mythology book was well put together, but otherwise pretty bland. Here we had a fantasy, urban fantasy-ish series from him called Neverwhere, which
I think I've heard of it.
I have seen it.
Is
yeah.
basically what would happen if Neil Gaiman tried to write Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
And stuck it in urban fantasy instead. And this kind of works. Mostly
Doesn't he almost always do urban fantasy?
To some
Isn't that
degree or
sort of
another.
Yeah, he does. He did American Gods. It's what he's most well known for. But he does other stuff. He did The Graveyard's Kid and a few other books like that. I actually have The Graveyard Child or whatever it's called. But I have not read it yet. It's
Speaking
on
of which, when's that Good Omens movie coming?
Not for a while, I think.
Oh.
So yeah. What was I going to say about what I was talking about? Right. So this book has a very weird tone, especially compared to his other stuff, because it is basically an attempt to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but set in an urban fantasy environment. And it works in a world that has another world layered on top of ours that is there, but not there.
You're not being very descriptive, I have to say.
So people in this other realm of existence are still in our world too, but they can't be perceived by other people, and they have some limited interaction, but they can still do stuff. If they grab your arm, you still know they're there. You'll suddenly realize they're there, but you won't acknowledge them until they do something overt to get your attention, and then when you get away from that person, you will quickly forget about them. So it's more like a perception filter effect than an actual other world, although it does have locations that the main people on the top surface can't get to. The geography is not well explained. The audiobook was only 8 hours. So it doesn't go as in depth with all this stuff as you would with a full book series or anything that has a lot of meat to it, like the Dresden Files or something.
Or anything in the Nasu.
Yeah.
Which also has a reverse will.
Yeah. So this is the Cliff Notes version of this world. And the one thing that this book really has going for it that I'll give Neil a whole lot of credit on is some of the characters. Like the Marquis de Caravat, he says it different 3 times, and he says that's intentional when I read the post notes. The Marquis de Caravan or something. The Marquis apparently didn't know how to pronounce the name either, or the word either, so he says it differently to different people.
Right.
But he's this black guy that is the master manipulator type and is so sleazy that when the protagonist gets dragged into this other world, the girl who drags him there, after her dad dies before the story starts, but he leaves her a message that says, "This guy is such a douche canoe. You can trust him no matter what."
Huh.
Like, he is so
trust him and trust him to do exactly what he says, type of thing. Or trust him to behave in a particular way all the time. Yes. Or actually trust him.
And he is the most traditionally heroic character in the series, in the whole book, despite...
Is he attempting to be?
No. He's just trying to repay a debt. And he makes every single scene he's in. He has this huge gambit that he plays for like the first and second act of the book that is a total red herring. And I loved it. It was really good. Everything about that character was wonderful. Dor, the leading girl, comes from the family of Door and Arch and other similar names of entryways, and their gimmick is they can open stuff. She's our leading lady, and that's her special power. I don't know what she is. She's like an embodiment of a concept that lives in this other parallel world, and there are other normal fantasy type races here too, like elves and stuff. But yeah.
Are they implicated as an explanation of why we've got stories about them, but we don't ever see them?
Not really. Very little about the metaphysics of this world is explained. This is very much the story about, unfortunately, the weakest character in the book. And that's Richard. Richard is an accountant with a obsessive, borderline abusive girlfriend who winds up in this world when he accidentally trips over Dora's body while she has the perception filter on, while she's bleeding out very, very early in the story. And instead of going to some big important business dinner with his girlfriend, he takes her home to save her because she's bleeding out on the street and nobody seems to notice her. So he picks her up and drags her to his house. But for some reason, presumably because he exposed himself to somebody from that side for so long, he winds up falling into the cracks of the world and winding up with this perception filter as well. And he has to go to the underside of the world.
People can't perceive him.
Yeah, people there's a whole chapter and a half of people just moving out this desk of this guy they don't know at all at his job, and like his apartment gets rented out or gets sold to new owners, and they're like, "Oh, I thought the last owner unfurnished it and stuff," and people just don't remember him at all. So he has to go work with people on the underside. Yeah, he has to go work with people on the underside of London. It's set in London.
London Beneath, I believe they called it. I just remembered I actually have seen it. Yeah,
London Below. That's to go to find his way back home so he can get his old life back. And yeah.
So you said that they can interact with them normally under certain circumstances, right?
They can influence the real world pretty much as normal people can, but any kind of mental or memory-based effects they would have, any kind of impact they would have that is not tangible, is gone after they leave an area. People completely forget about them.
If they reapproach someone who did know them back when he was on the other side, do they remember the stuff that they used to know?
No. Once you've fallen into this world and got this perception filter, that memory never comes back. For those people anyway. The only interaction he can have with these people is the forced interaction he can get from them if he grabs their arm and turns their face towards him, basically. Or they may get a weird feeling that they know this guy if they have a strong connection to him. One person that has a particularly strong connection to him when he's still has the perception filter on, gets the feeling she's seen him somewhere before, and sees this guy acting really sketch at her dinner party that she's trying to arrange, and starts calling security on him, despite them being very close before then. So she has no idea who the guy is, but just that he is somebody she feels like she's seen before. And that's the only thing we get that's any kind of interaction with him being significantly remembered by somebody in universe. So, unfortunately, Richard is a very old type of dropped into another world fantasy scenario type of character, even more worn out than the isekai protagonist that we see in anime now, where he refuses.
And that's saying something.
Where he refuses to believe that any of this fantastical stuff that's happening around him could possibly be real.
Oh my goodness, that is such a tired one. I hate that. It drives me up the wall.
Yeah, he just wants to get his old life back, and it is so boring.
I can understand a plot line of I want to get my old life back, but the plot line where they go on at length rejecting what is clearly happening, really, like, that gets tiresome within 5 minutes. I don't know why writers keep doing it.
Yeah, it is really, really bad. And it drove me up the wall. And the book is in third person, but it dips into a focus character's head during certain points of the chapter where it will give insight into one character at a time and rotate between the cast. And Richard's just an idiot. And not a funny kind of idiot, just the genuine idiot who can't accept new information. Like, this guy is stupid.
He's British.
You have literally met 3 people now who can talk to rats. And you're saying that it's impossible for a bridge to suddenly go dark in the middle of daytime, dude? What the heck is wrong with you?
The thing is, that doesn't sound very British at all. Like, the traditional British character has always been someone who can, stoically accept whatever goes on around them with strident disapproval. The standard British character does not approve of things. It's not that they can't accept them; they disapprove. Like, they can accept anything, but they'll just disapprove of it.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't proper. Like, that's the classic British character. The character who wants everything to go the way it goes in their head. That's an American typical character. It's not a British one.
Yeah, even then, it's an annoying archetype, and nobody wants it.
Yeah,
but they run with it, and they run it through the entire story, and it just gets so tiring by the end of it. I was done with his BS.
They play that one in like every single time travel story ever written. They do that exact same thing.
Yeah, it is.
I hate it. It's so awful.
But a lot of times, the protagonist might start out that way, but eventually they grow and start to accept things.
Yeah, the thing is that it almost always goes on for too long.
Yes.
It's always a moral lesson at the end of the book, or some Aesop about accepting things as you see them, or something like that.
Yeah, from memory though,
when they do realize it.
Yeah, from memory though, Richard never actually does it in that book.
Oh no, he does. He does at the very end. The story is resolved in the chapter before the last one. And the last chapter is just him realizing that his life is now boring because he saw something exciting.
That was it.
And he literally goes crazy.
It's also a really banal conclusion.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, everything about Richard's character and involvement in this story is frustrating and superfluous.
So it's basically, cool world, dumb protagonist.
Cool world, a bunch of really cool characters. I really like the Marquess. He had a short story addended to the end of this book that he wrote. Neil Gaiman normally doesn't do this type of serial long-form stuff, but he did make a short story for just the Marquis de whatever, and it was about him really liking this fancy coat. And during his gambit he plays in the main story, he loses this coat. And he goes through a ridiculous convoluted series of events to get this coat back.
Traditionally it's a hat, but it is a plot that I'm I'm always entertained by.
Yes.
Yes. So he comes back. The whole ordeal was incredibly dangerous and cost him way more than that coat. But that's his coat, dang it. And he's going to get his coat back. So it takes place in the middle of the story. How it fits, I have no idea. I guess the story doesn't specify a time frame of events for some things in the middle of the story. It just kind of happens there. But it goes into his head of trying to go how he got about wanting to be the most unique person around, and just like his brother, and despising whenever his brother shows up to help him and stuff. And his brother comes to his rescue and pulls off a better mysterious Batman disappearance than he could, and he gets mad about it. It's really, really good. I like this short story a lot, and I liked a lot of the characters. I thought the world was really cool. I thought it had some neat ideas, and some of the ideas were executed well. But Richard's just the killing point of the book. If you can't get over Richard, and thankfully there are quite a few chapters where Richard is not present at all to give you some points for the book, or he is not present for the majority of the chapter at least. There are long stretches of time anyway in audiobook language where Richard's not there.
Yes.
And you just get to enjoy the world. And I liked those a lot. And because it is Neil narrating the book, he wrote the book, so he obviously is portraying the characters the way he wanted them to be portrayed and when he was writing it. And he is a fairly decent narrator himself, so I did enjoy his narration of the book. But overall, I give a cautious recommendation to this based on what you're looking for when you go into a story. And if you are looking for a strong protagonist, this ain't going to do it for you. But otherwise, it's an okay read. It's only 8 hours in audiobook, so I think for that it's okay to stick through if you got a stray Audible credit or something. It's not a bad read.
Yeah.
To translate that Ari speak, he's going to strip mine it for ideas to steal for his next tabletop campaign.
Damn Skippy.
Some of the rat speaker stuff was really funny. There's a whole clan of people that they can just talk to rats, and that's their shtick.
No, it's impossible to talk to rats.
Yeah, no, it's impossible to talk to rats. It's really funny how this concept is introduced. Before the reverse side of the world stuff gets introduced in like chapter 3. In chapter 2, after he rescues Dor, she's like, "Hang on, I need to send a message," and calls up a rat. He's like, and talks to the rat about going to get a message to the Marquis to come help her. And so she sends the rat off, and when the rat shows up, he just sees a normal rat, because it is just a normal rat. All rats can just talk in this universe. They totally understand human speech, and just a few humans can understand them. Mm-hmm. He just chucks a TV remote at it on instinct.
Whose instinct is to throw the TV remote at a rat?
Richard's, because Richard's an idiot.
Yes.
Well, I'm not even a talking rat. Like, even the horrible vermin that I might find in my house during the winter, like, I still wouldn't throw a remote at them. Like, what's that going to come to? Stupid.
Yeah, Richard is stupid. So I cautiously recommend the book if the world sounds interesting. The overall plot is very good. I thought a lot of the red herrings were executed very well. I thought a lot of the mystery and what's actually going on was really, really interesting. I thought the world itself was interesting. All the stuff that has to do with the book being a story set in a world is really good. It's just Richard that's the problem. And Dora's pretty bland too. Yeah. But she is more just generic girl with a vendetta to go figure out what the heck happened to her dead family and why she was being hunted.
She has her moments.
Yeah. But she is just a weak character, not a deal breaker character like Richard could be.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you really hate the protagonist of a book, it can become
yeah.
So that is what I'll say on that book. The next series of audiobooks, I got caught up on Ward.
Is this that Worm sequel? I'm trying to remember what it is.
Ward is the Worm sequel, yes.
No spoilers.
Yeah. So spoilers.
Damn it!
I'm not going to spoil. Not plot events, just characters that are around.
Okay.
But this is a series where people die for a pastime.
Not really. It's only in a couple arcs where Wildbow just decided he had too many characters.
He drops the murder hammer.
He doesn't go George R.R. Martin on stuff and say anybody can die at any time. He usually just realizes he's written himself into a corner and some people need to die. That can happen.
Anyone can die at specific times.
Yeah, it's like the scene has to be right for it. He's much better about that than a lot of writers are nowadays, which is a credit to Wildbow. But Ward has a few other issues, and I think it's because it's his first sequel. He left a lot of plot hooks and threads that can be followed in Worm, and set up for Ward, and he's following through on all of them. And this is not a good thing.
Even if they were crappy and uninteresting and nobody really cares about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, Foil, the character I ripped wholesale for my superhero tabletop campaign, function entirely, was the character that existed when the protagonist didn't have enough DPS to kill the thing.
I didn't think she really needed elaborating on, though. She kind of got her story and her ending, and that was about it for her.
Isn't that basically material for a short story compilation, though?
Potentially.
It's not really stuff that you should be putting in the main plot.
Well, there are interlude chapters that are still essential to what goes on to understand the story that are told from other characters' perspectives. And the particular offensive action I'm talking about, I'm tempted to spoil this whole event for you, Fern, to save you a whole lot of anger, because Wildbow wound up backpedaling on this really, really fast a few chapters later. But she has a antagonist because she's part of what they call cluster triggers, which are being explored way more in Ward. And cluster triggers are groups of people that have a trigger event in close proximity to each other. And instead of getting their main power at full strength, they get their main power at about 60% strength and a token amount of the other shard's powers added on top of their own, which are usually totally different and idiosyncratic abilities.
So they're really bad at multiclassing.
Yeah. Yeah, Foil was one of the ones that rolled like a natural 20 on her luck with a cluster trigger. She gets the ability to penetrate anything, even through dimensions, and hits all dimensions in all spaces when she imbues an object with her power. So she loads crossbow bolts and cannonballs and etc. to do more damage. She is the answer to we don't have enough DPS. And her secondary power was incredible accuracy. Her two secondary powers were incredible accuracy and enhanced timing, in air quotes, which was used as a red herring. Yeah. It was used in the fight against Jack Slash at near the end of Worm. And it was meant in there just to not let Foil get taken out of the fight by an absurdly OP character who was around.
Mm-hmm.
The character who has the primary power of timing is treated with Contessa levels of the ability called Path to Victory. Basically, she makes this huge elaborate plan, and she knows the timing of how everybody's exactly going to move. And somehow, in some universe, this justifies her having Path to Victory type powers, where she can just win because she knows what everybody's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like Mace Windu's Shatterpoint force power turned up to infinity.
Yeah. Foil was an answer to a problem. Foil's nemesis was a background element, and all of that worked just fine. Foil was fine as an answer to we don't have enough DPS to kill the world-ending boss. We need to do more damage to it. Get Foil's power on that. You know, that was her gerb, and she was a fine character as a normal character too, although fairly bland. Yeah. But her nemesis is called March, as in the March Hare, because her gimmick is timing. And they just do not portray... Wildbow does a very, very bad job justifying why her power of enhanced timing is so godlike that she can organize a raid on a fortified city full of heroes and villains opposing her to accomplish a job. Like, they are literally warping the entire space and layout of this city with Vista's power to expanding and track space.
If you can't tell the difference between planning and reality warping, your planning is too good.
Yeah. Like, They literally
Like,
had
if your
Vista and
character
Labyrinth
is
on the job.
Haruhi, then you've done something wrong. Unless you're actually creating Haruhi.
Yeah. There is that. Well, we already had a guaranteed going to win power type character. Her power is literally called Path to Victory, where she gets a list of steps in her head she has to follow and can follow automatically on muscle memory to just follow these steps, and you will get the outcome you want whenever you ask it a question.
Mm.
Like, that was Contessa's power, and it is incredibly overpowered. It lets her do anything at all as long as it's feasible. If there is a singular way it could be done, she can do it.
Yeah, but
So-
in Worm at least she was only a fairly small part.
Yeah, she is not a major plot force. And thankfully, Wildbow realized March was a problem. Because March was pulling some ridiculous city-wide raids with just a handful. What's the equivalent of a city gang in Worm? She could take on an entire fortified city and get through and cause ridiculous multiversal damage at the end of it.
So why did he let this character run away with it, though? Like, because it seems to me like it would be very easy to put limitations on a power. Like, all you have to say is that all it gives them is the right timing. It doesn't tell them anything about the actual outcome or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so we got people called Wildbow out on this, and they were getting very frustrated with how March kept winning, and the heroes kept getting shafted every single time they tried to set up a countermeasure to her. And so eventually, and he quote, I'm going to spoil this for you, Ferns, here or not, because you're going to be mad when she does this.
Oh dear.
If you don't know, it gets basically retconned later. She quote kills Vista, one of the most popular minor characters in the original Worm. Yeah, but remember, Vista can reduce the distance things are between each other, so she just made
Vista can just basically break reality.
She can break the concept of space within limitations. There's a physical exhaustion factor. It turns out later, she made the blade really, really tiny on the rapier that was piercing her, because March's version of Foil's power is to, once she hits a target, she can make it explode.
What does that have to do with Foil's power?
Foil's power is the ability to pierce anything, and her rapier is really sharp, but for some reason, March can make it explode.
But why? How is that anything to do with the original power?
We have no idea. But
Does that mean that eventually Foil's going to learn to blow things up even bigger?
We don't know. So, at the end of it, he has an interlude where the whole March scenario just gets thrown into the dumpster because he realizes it's bad. He takes this character and just chucks her in the dirt by having her and her main assist character get called, go to set up a plan, and part of this plan is to meet Foil and kill her because reasons. And Foil just says, nah, you didn't actually kill Vista, and just WTF owns March and walks out, and the whole March subplot is just thrown in the trash can.
Good.
It's a huge plot tumor that just wastes a whole lot of time.
That sounds like the sort of thing that as a writer is just writing a story, they ends up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, this is why we have editors.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time in the Worm series where there has just been a giant plot tumor. Like, Law Vista didn't really die. She did cause a big multiversal disaster with her shenanigan, her biggest shenanigan. Well, potential disaster. We have no idea what's going on with it. But it didn't. I won't spoil what it is.
Right.
But other than that thing she did, that could have been an accident on some random passerby that stepped on a Tinker device or something that caused that. So it did not have to be March that caused that. So it's fairly easy to ignore what March did in the story. She was also there to elaborate on cluster triggers, because one of the main protagonists this time is a cluster trigger, Rain. But yeah, March is just a huge problem in general. I'm glad she's gone. And if you're going through Ward and you're like, make March go away, Wildbow figures out by the end of the arc he needs to make March go away. So he makes March go away and will presumably replace her with a much better villain, which he did with Cradle. And Cradle is a much, much better villain in general for Ward. And I won't spoil anything about him because he's really cool.
It's a shame because he's done some really good villains. Like Jack Slash is an excellent villain.
Yeah, Coil and Jack Slash are both very good. Cradle's really good too. He's following up in a similar vein to those two characters, with characters that have wonky outlooks and mindsets on the world that have led them to villainy. He does that really, really well. And so instead of trying this weird March thing, he switched it up and said, okay, no, we'll go back and focus on the protagonist group instead of a character that's a periphery character and this just there to boost DPS. So Cradle is the main antagonist to Rain, who is a character in the main group of heroes the story focuses.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil anything about him. The other thing about this is their Leviathan arc, or Ward's Leviathan arc happened. Finally. We got it, and it's a thing that happened. There are a lot of really cool scenes in the Arc 9 Goddess arc. You'll remember Goddess was set up at the very, very end of Worm. She was the lady in blue that Taylor meets in another world that has total control of it.
Yeah.
So all her powers were explained there, so that's not really a spoiler. She has super telekinesis in a fixed shape. She can lift an area of space up and move it around and chuck it. But it's a fixed shape. She has but her most significant power is the power to align people to her way of thinking and to pursuing her goals. And people that get hit by this act like they would normally, but they just really think Goddess is a cool person. And this is okay as an idea. And the problem is he makes it hit the protags. All of them. Not a one in the main group is spared from
this sounds like when a writer introduces a Mary Sue to a fanfic, and everybody just likes this new OC Mary Sue for no reason.
That is exactly what it is. And the characters that have had training in the PRT know what this is and know Master Effects like this. So you get a really awkward read through Chapter 9. And Chapter 9 is when this arc happens. It's the Goddess arc. It's totally self-contained and resolved as the big super threat, because Goddess is super dangerous just because of her master power and her other powers where she can get people to do stuff. She's also very, very damage resistant and has a danger sense, so she's very hard to kill. But
OP?
Yeah, she is OP. She took over a whole world, but she was set up and foreshadowed very hard at the end of Worm, and it was explicitly said to be put in the final battle just to foreshadow stuff in the sequel if he ever wrote one. And that's all fine. The arc itself is fine. The events that happen are fine. The problem is she whammies all of the protags. Every single one of them gets whammied. So they're all aligned to her throughout the whole chapter. So you spend a significant portion of every chapter where poor Rain, the audiobook reader, not the character who was named after him, but the poor Rain trying to read this audiobook has had a tough time getting this out because he has to get the tones of the characters right that are semi-mind controlled, but know that they're semi-mind controlled. And it just is a taxing thing to both. I read it before I listened to this arc, and I both it was hard to read sometimes and very taxing. It's a good arc, but it is a very, very, very taxing arc. And poor Rain has the same effect in when he reads it in the audiobook. He is doing his God-given best to portray it right, but he is clearly tired while he's trying to get this stuff together. And a lot of big events happen, and it is a very long arc. The interludes are done by Crispy in this one as well. Crispy is the Aussie guy who does the audiobook stuff for the Worm audiobook project.
Yeah, he did a decent job.
He is my favorite guest narrator of the Ward audiobook team, or the Worm audiobook team.
I could really upset you right now, by the way.
If you say NSP, I'm going to punch you in the mouth.
I was going to say Echidna Art, but close enough.
But no. Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
No. The Echidna arc is just really, really bad and badly read in general. That was a person that was a terrible narrator got a hold of it. But Crispy is really, really good.
Yes.
And he handles some of what are so far the best interludes in the Worm Ward story duology thus far, where they focus on the twins who share a body and have to swap.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through their history of what they had to deal with and what it's like to be them. And
Sounds
how
like
they...
it was copied from somewhere. Not saying where.
Yeah. But yeah. That's been a superpower trope done before, but they play it really, really hard for angst. And it is clearly not a fun time for either brother, and I think it's done really well. The problem is, though, all of this stuff is really heavy. You have a returning villain from who was a big deal in early chapters of Worm show up. I'll just say it. Lung comes back, and you get to see a proper fight with a fully powered Lung. All of this is really big stuff, but it's a bunch of really big stuff while the protagonists are all whammied. And this is all cool to go through, but you're going through it back to back to back to back. There are no breaks in this chapter. Just every chapter has something huge and impactful after, like, chapter 6 of this arc. And it's 15 chapters and 3 or 4 interludes.
Jeez.
It goes on for a while. And it isn't until, like, about, because they can't stay whammied forever, it's not until, like, chapter 14 they get unwhammied. But it is a good arc, but it is not one that's easy to digest in one go, which is how Ward arcs are best consumed, as one arc as a whole, and then the next one for all 30 in Worm and Ward. And that is how it has always been. It's been best to just eat the whole arc, and then that's a pretty good meal for a while until the next one's done.
All right, we've got to move on, guys. We're actually running out of showtime.
Yes, we are.
We're not going to get to the news at this point at all.
We'll get there. I totally lost track of time.
Yeah, I shouldn't have let you talk about Ward.
Yeah, no, it was so dumb. I was just frustrated with a freaking Mary Sue character.
Yeah.
At least the writer realized it.
He did, but yeah, that's the problem with just having a live written Reb serial is stuff like that would normally get cut out is still there, so he's got to write it out.
Let's do the email as soon as I can pull up the Internet Explorer and pull it up, unless somebody else already has it up. But yeah, a closing thing on Ward is it's going pretty good right now. Rain's doing a really good job with the audiobook, but it's going out a little slow because he's wrapping up chapter 9. And chapter 9 is draining, and I get why. That's where I was going with that super tangent.
Literal super tangent.
Yeah, that's okay. Right. I think each of us had a super tangent this week.
Yeah.
Okay. So please tell me somebody else has the email up.
I do have it up.
I'm writing a Diablos at the moment, so I can't look it up.
Stop doing that.
I'll attempt it this week since I haven't butchered one of Zarathus's emails in a while.
Okay.
And I still have, because I got called on time. Let's see. First of all, it's Fox Girls, not Cat Girls. Okay, maybe Cat Girls too. It took quite a bit of willpower not to buy Foxy and Neko Miko. We all have our vices, like tsundere princesses. The weird thing is that I kept getting ads for genderbending and stepmom anime. It's like Google doesn't know me anymore.
I would rather Google not know me, to be honest.
I'd rather it as well, but yeah.
Google has a pretty weird read on me too sometimes. But yeah. Second, anime and fascism. Let me quote Lance from Epic Battle Fantasy / Bullet Heaven. Fascism isn't wrong, it's just never been implemented correctly. Something tells me if you wore that shirt in public, they would lock you up. No, they would praise you and say you did a great job.
It depends on which crowd you go after.
If you in a major city, you would get head pats for wearing that shirt or something.
In the sensible parts of the world, they would lock you up. Yes.
Oh, he says fascism, and that's a buzzword right now, so probably not.
You'd be lucky to make it like across the street.
Oh yeah.
Because the media has been accommodating all of these. Oh, it's okay to punch fascists, and we decide who's a fascist.
Yeah, never mind that they're the fascists. Let's see. Third, 2014. We just wanted to play video games. 2015. We just wanted Star Wars. 2016. What have you done to Star Wars? 2017. We just wanted to watch anime. 2018. We just wanted to read comics. I dare not think what 2019 is having in store for us.
Oh, we already know that. What have you done to anime?
Oh, what have you done to dubbing?
At this rate, though, like meme magic is going to end up having Sargon on Downing Street.
The way it's going already, I think that's almost a certain thing.
Yeah.
Because he's not afraid to say what people are thinking.
Well, people who don't live in London, anyway.
Well, yeah. Normal people.
Yeah, so probably more get woke or broke situations until the situation gets unbearable. It's already pretty unbearable. It's just it has a whole lot of bunker behind it to hold it in place. Let's see. Fourth, PS5 with super duper fast SSD. You can say goodbye to all those loading screen tips. I can. I think your sentence is worded weird there. But I already have a PC, so the only console I'd consider is a Switch. Yeah, nothing interesting happened this week. Not even Doom stuff. It's probably good, because we can't ever comment on your Doom stuff, because we don't play Doom. We love you, Sarah. But
I play Doom occasionally. I just don't break it out very often.
Very rarely.
It's one of my nostalgia games that I'll periodically go back to, and will occasionally play if something catches my interest. Like I played the Toho mod very badly, but all they got to do is make a Fate mod.
Yeah, this would have been the perfect week for a Doom email, Sarathus. We ran too long. All of us did in the week segment, so we could have cut time. It's okay. It's okay.
So we
still love you.
We got a lot of news, but we don't really have the time to go through it.
We'll make something happen. Don't worry. And he says, "P.S. Let me quote Anna from Epic Battles in Fantasy V. I'm a cartoon character. I'm as old as you want me to be because the world needs more silliness from EBF." Okay, and that's from Sarathus. So we need to book it. We have news.
All right. Well, we'll leave the City of Heroes stuff for next week because that's still ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah, it might take a while before that actually reaches anything you could call a resolution.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
So let's do the beep boops first, and try not to. There's only one beep boop this week, actually.
All right, beep boop away.
So we'll do this one real fast without tangenting. Nintendo reports almost 10 million Switch accounts online. Smash Ultimate outsold the entire Wii U.
Yeah.
I just thought this was really funny.
I'm not remotely surprised. The Wii U is trash.
I'm not surprised either, but I just seeing it in writing was really funny to me. So that's the one beep. Now let's see. Somebody else pick another one. I've been talking too long.
All right, we got a quick beep boop here. Square Enix is the latest of the big developers to not go to E3. They will be having their presser on June the 10th. So I believe
who's
the day
still
after.
at E3? Ubi, Bethesda,
Microsoft.
There's few enough companies you'll be able to have a presser for every company.
So yeah, there's really not many there at all.
Well, the thing is that E3's been redundant for a long time because it's essentially just an event that exists for a media that nobody listens to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old media event. That's what it's for.
So a lot of developers are taking the obvious route, and now with better communication and social media and all that, they can talk directly to their customer base. They don't need E3 or the old shill media.
Yeah, because previously the media acted as a sort of filter between companies and customers, and that was never optimal for anybody except for the journalists. So
yeah. So yeah, now they don't have these incompetent so-called journalists cloudying up their messages anymore. They can lie directly to us. It's
not like there's no role for journalists, but the role for journalists is for investigative work like what you see crop up from Jason Schreier now and again, where they've actually built a stable of contacts. They've managed to obtain information that can't normally be obtained and would certainly never be obtained by official announcements and channels like that. Like, that's the sort of journalism that there's always room for. Problem is that there's like 3 people in the entire journalism industry who do it.
Yeah. It's kind of sad, really. Anywho, the big announcements this week, aside from all the City of Heroes stuff, Persona 5, they announced a bunch of stuff.
Yep, it sure did. And by sure did, we don't have a whole lot of details on this one yet. We have a confirmation of some stuff in the trailer, really, so we can actually talk about stuff that was seen in it. Particularly, the speculation about one screenshot is going rampant, and the who the new character is and how they're related to stuff, and a few new things that are showing up. I don't have a proper full detailed list because a lot of this stuff was revealed between the concert that a bunch of the stuff was shown at, and press release, and another event somewhere. It might have just been a social media post or announcement.
Mm-hmm.
So not all of this was announced at once, so it's very hard to find an aggregate of it, but I'll try to go through as much as I can.
All right, where do you want to start?
We'll start with the girl we saw, because the big point of speculation was, were they going to do a Persona 4 Golden or a P3P? They're doing a Persona 4 Golden.
Yep.
I thought that was obvious. I'm astonished that anybody ever thought otherwise.
Yeah, it was a very remote possibility to begin with. P4 or P5 story does not need the same kind of treatment that Persona 3 needed to both jump to a handheld platform and clean up some of the looser story bits. P5,
also, applying it would be nightmarishly difficult.
Yeah, it is very much so centered around Joker, and he is very much so the most character-y main character we've had. It would not have made a whole lot of sense to have to rewrite the entire game and hire everybody back to do more voices, and re-record every single line of dialogue.
Yeah.
So I don't think any reasonable person expected that to be the case, but some people were saying it could be, and it was a possibility, so we couldn't write it out. But no, she is more akin to Marie from Persona 4 Golden, who comes in as and instead of being just an NPC with a significant social link, she's actually a full-blown party member. We see her with a Phantom Thief outfit, and we know she has a dungeon of some kind added to the game about her. So One of the palaces will be about her in the game, which is nice. So that's
the trailer also has footage of her fighting enemies, so it's pretty obvious that she's a character.
Yeah. I was speaking more for Marie comparisons than actual clarification there, but yeah. So the cool thing here was she's going to have a palace of her own, which means more palaces to explore, which I'm always a fan of. A few of the bosses have had redesigns from older palaces. It looks like Kamoshida's has a whole nother face now, or he is doing something he doesn't normally do in one of the screenshots. I don't have it on hand. But
unless it could be just some other dungeon that revives all of the previous stuff for all we.
That's also possible. Too. So we have that as well, which is really cool. Overall, it looks like the Persona 4 Golden treatment. I thought Golden did a very good job updating Persona 4. So, that's about the most we need to cover about the Sona news right now. There is other minor announcements. We already know that P4 or P5U is going to be Persona 5 Arena. We know that pretty much guaranteed.
Yep.
As soon as whatever the heck Team Blue at Arc System Works is doing right now is off that project, they're probably going to get on Persona 5 Arena. They might even be on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which team is doing Grand Blue?
I think that's Team Blue. So that might be their current project. Because I'm pretty sure Team Red is completely absorbed in Guilty Gear stuff right now. If they're not, I would be very surprised. They're usually exclusively for Guilty Gear. That's why they're Team Red. So it is more than likely Team Blue.
Can everybody please stop interfering with Team Blue so they can make me my Fate fighter?
Never. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So
yeah, that'll be fun. But we've also got Persona 5S, which was announced. And this
I saw this announcement and I'm like, now you have my attention.
Yeah, okay. Now
I
you
didn't
have
care
my
about any
money.
of that other crap. Like the new character, she's cute in a generic sort of way, but
she doesn't
honestly,
have pants and she's making people angry.
Yeah, there's also that, but I don't really care. Like the odds of me buying Royal are very, very low unless you can import an old save. So I just can't be bothered playing through the whole game again just for one extra character and a couple of social links. But so I don't care about that. But then when they announced S, I'm like, okay, now I'm listening. Now I'm listening.
Yeah, That was the exact opposite reaction I had. Is like, oh, I guess I got to play a Musou game now.
Yep. So they've basically just given Persona 5 to the Dynasty Warriors guys.
Yep. And the amount of outrage over this was hilarious to me because I love Musou games.
Well, it's because when
Yeah,
they announced
really mad.
Yeah, so when they announced Royal, this is one of the reasons people are mad, by the way. They announced Royal and they said it's on the PS4. But they said, here's Persona 5S, and it's on the PS4 and the Switch. And people have been clamoring for a Switch version of Persona 5 since the game launched.
That there's a lot of evidence that it will have a Switch version coming out soon.
Yep.
But I think that deal is still ongoing right now, and that is why we've had no announcements for it.
I would not be surprised to see that one announced at Nintendo's pseudo E3 presentation.
I expect, to be honest, it's almost done already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just waiting for the right market optimal moment to release it.
Yeah. Just wait for the hype
because, like,
and then announce it.
Like, for instance, what I basically mean is that right now is not a good time to release games, really. Like, this Days Gone has come out, and that's a system seller. Sekiro's come out. Like, this is like people's wallets empty at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It's not really a good time for it.
This is when the mid-high tier games all come out.
Yeah. The entire Western world has just gone on their Easter holidays. If they're taking them, they have no money. Like, this is just a very bad time for the market. So, I wouldn't expect an announcement of something people could imminently buy.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. But so a Musu game happened. I didn't know about the outrage until Vol mentioned it because I wasn't paying attention to any of the news around the Musu game at all. Because I'm not.
People are mad about the platform issue. By and large, Musu games are widely hated. There aren't that many people who really like them. The demographic that still think Dynasty Warriors is cool shrinks year over year. Because honestly, the Dynasty Warriors guys are very bad at innovating.
They really are.
It's the thing. It's not really so much that lots of people hate it in general terms, so much as it's a very, very polarizing genre. Either you love it the way I do, or you think that it's a total waste of everybody's resources and should never be made. There's no middle ground. There are very few people who are just okay with them existing.
I'm okay with them existing. They're not my preferred game genre at all.
Anyway. So that's really about our time, unfortunately.
That is so not.
Because Fern has to rush off and work.
Yeah.
Oh right, Fern has work. I'm thinking we can push it a bit. No, Fern's gotta work.
No, we can't. As much as I don't want to, yeah.
Dang. Okay. Yeah, I would have watched my time sooner. I totally brain farted on that you gotta work.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering about this. Like, why does Ari think we've got infinite time today?
I just totally brain farted it. I'm sorry, Fern. I'm like, we can go a bit long. We have an email, the news. I got a few things to talk about. Vol's going long. It's okay. We'll be fine. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up. Say I will put a bookmark next to this next one to talk about because we had a bit of stuff to say about this one immediately in the pre-show. We might talk about it next week.
Yeah, we'll probably dig up a lot of this old stuff next week.
Yeah, so we might play catch up unless something big happens. So yeah, email topic of the week. This week, will we ever stop tangenting?
No.
Ever?
No. The answer is no.
Or going into way too much detail about niche things that nobody cares about.
Also no.
The answer is also no.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah.
All right, wrap us out.
For the show. So, yeah, I think we're done this week. I'm not going to bother with closing comments because Fern's in a hurry. And I totally forgot. So, we'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.